Hey everybody, spoilers for Alien. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Script Department. I'm John. I'm joined today by Brad to discuss Alien, the very first entry into the Xenomorph franchise, I guess. Before we get into that, if you haven't already, do check out our website, thescriptdepartment.net, for all the latest projects we get up to with our global network of screenwriters. Hit us up on social media. Links are in the description. And subscribe to our podcast as well. Wherever you get your podcast, just search for The Script Department. Brad, we've talked about Aliens. I've talked with Matt as well about Alien Isolation. Our love of Alien has come up time and time again. But what was your experience of watching this film for the first time?
So as we said on the Aliens review, I watched Aliens first on a tape from the TV, and a lump of it was missing. So I watched this before, so it was almost like watching the origin story of the film that I already knew. And it's very different. It's a horror film. It's like a proper it's a slow burn, thrilling horror film in space. Well, they called it Jaws in space, didn't they? So it was like this monster trying to destroy them all, and you don't exactly see it until a lot later on, and you never really properly get good eyes on it, to be honest. And just the whole trepidation of this thing, they're trapped on the ship with it, and they can't even cut it. They can't do any, because otherwise they'll all die because they get sucked out the hull. And just all of the little beats and the story and everything is just so intricately sewn in. I just thought it was a wonderful experience. A very different film, but obviously with the same DNA.
Yeah, I came to Aliens first as well, and then I was so disappointed my first viewing of Alien, because I thought, there's only one alien in it. And I'd been spoiled, and it's such a...
The clue's in the title though, right?
I know, yeah, I know. But it was just one of those things where I'd set myself up for, this is Ridley Scott. It's the guy who did Gladiator. It's the guy who did Blade Runner. It's the guy who did all these great movies. And, if James Cameron... he can be a bit cheesy every now and again with his movies, and and I would consider, I think, Ridley Scott to be the bolder filmmaker, the guy who, I think if there was going to be an Oscar race tomorrow between Ridley Scott and James Cameron, I think I would put my money on Ridley Scott to win. And nothing against James Cameron, but I just think Ridley Scott, I think, has proven himself with more. He's made more movies, obviously, but I think he's proven himself as being a more articulate filmmaker, maybe. And I just went into this thinking, well, if James Cameron did this, surely Ridley Scott's one is going to have the greatest use of the aliens and blah, blah, blah. And when you're also so conditioned to believe that the sequels are worse than the originals as well. And so I had this mammoth, unrealistic expectation, unreasonable expectation for the first film. And I really enjoyed it, but I think I had wanted something bigger out of it. And it wasn't until I went back and looked at it with a clearer lens and with a clearer understanding of what Ridley Scott was actually doing with that film at the time, that I realized, okay, yeah, this is amazing. And it is my favorite Alien movie now. Yeah, just, and we've talked about Aliens and the things I don't really like about that film. But yeah, really, really loved it the second time and the third time. And loved it, I love it even more with every viewing after that. Alien Isolation is one of my favorite video games, and it's because it so beautifully taps into what Ridley Scott created, not what other filmmakers created. So, I really loved this film, yeah. So my question for you is, why do people love this so much? Because I don't think I can figure out why I love this film so much.
So there are so many different things that are going to have made it so successful. I mean, just looking at the film alone, the year it was made, and the films that surrounded it, it was so unique to have that much drama and the narrative threads in a space horror film. It just didn't exist prior to that. It was so unique the way they've built this entire new universe, and it was almost like the perfect storm. So the script it went on. It was done for what 10 years or something before, or even maybe even longer before it got anywhere near Ridley Scott. So it all started with the script. So O'Bannon and Shusett worked on it, off it, on it, off it, on different projects. And I think O'Bannon was on Dune, the Jodorowsky version, and which got canned in the end. But he met Geiger on that, and it's like, oh, okay. So he bought Geiger. It wasn't Ridley Scott. It was the writer, and it really, really, really started with a script, and it was many other different versions. It was called Star Beast at one point. They took part of the story from some. It was basically this overblown student film at one point where they were chasing a beach ball around a ship. Basically, it's terrible, but there were some great parts of it, and it just got so much interest. But then they made it on 11 million. I don't know what that is in adjusted dollars, but I'm sure it's still not a lot these days, like 50, 60 million or something possibly. But, they made it on such a small budget, and it's so inventive. The art direction, the design of the creature, the atmospheric, the music, like how they've done it. Even the dialogue they use around, they're a mining ship. They're, and the ship is like, it's like a thing. It's like a machine. There's parts of it that are leaking, and it feels like they're grunts working, going and digging, precious metals and whatever out of deep space. And it's like, oh, right, the whole narrative of it is really focused on a reality in the future. Like they've tried to make it really real, even though it's complete sci-fi. And it's just the way that falls down, the way that all falls into place is one of the main reasons I think people can relate to it so much. It's like so unique, but you can relate to it because it feels there's a thread of reality running through it.
Yeah, I think when I was Googling images of the Nostromo there, because I'm glad when you described it as these miners and it doesn't look like a spaceship. I think that's one of the things I really love about it. I've been playing Lego Star Wars recently, this last week, and something about everything in Lego form makes you realize just how ridiculous some of this stuff can be. Like, why is a Star Destroyer pointy? Like, what's it cutting through? What's it? Why is it designed to look like a boat? Where it just seems like a wasted space when you're out in space. Whereas you look at the Nostromo, and it's these big towers, and it's these big kind of these spheres underneath, and it's designed. It looks more like an oil rig than a spaceship, and it doesn't even look like a space station. It makes sense as a very practical piece of engineering, and where it's maximizing its functionality over design, over aesthetic, and I think that's one of the things I love about Alien is there's a real not just in terms of the way it was made, but in terms of the thought process that went into the production design. It feels practical. The alien feels like a believable creature. The idea that it's very much about capturing to then implant an egg inside you. Isn't that what like parasites do? They latch onto a body so they can use that body. It's not just I'm going to kill you because I'm a psycho, or because that's my programming. It almost feels like serial killers in movies, and this is a serial killer movie. It feels like most serial killer movies are just you're painted as having psychological issues, and you're out to just kill the world basically, and there's no real meaning or significance to what you're doing. Whereas this is the furthering of that species. It's the evolution of that species through this death. There's something really horrific about it. But I love the tech. I love the music, as you say. But I don't. You talked about the context of how that film was made. I don't position that film. I don't think about where that film existed at that time. Or I don't. I rarely think about movies in that way. When I watch any of my favorite classics, I don't look at them as like, oh, well, that's the way they were back then, or or think about how great that must have been back then.
Yeah.
I just watch it for what it is, and I'm able to, like Jaws. We talked about that. This is Jaws in space. Jaws for me holds up perfectly to this day.
Mm.
Yeah, it's very you can guess the decade it was filmed in, but you could make it almost exactly the way it is now, and it would still hold up, I think. I think you can make Alien exactly the way it is now, and maybe polish up one or two practical effects, maybe add a little more blood splatter or something with some CGI, whatever, maybe. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it works exactly as is, even now. It's just damn good storytelling and filmmaking, isn't it?
I mean, it's so solid. The structure's very regular, but there are things in it that are very irregular as far as storytelling is concerned. So, like, there's no real protagonist for quite a while. Like, Ripley is not the protagonist when that starts. You think it's going to be Tom Skerritt as Dallas, or I mean, it seems to change regularly. At one point, you might think that very briefly that Ian Holm's the protagonist. You know, the bit where he's sort of watching them go down to the ship, and you're like, oh, this is through his eyes. You know, and then everyone starts to get killed off, and you're like, oh, she's the protagonist. This new actress, what's her name, Miss Weaver. Yeah, it's like this was the film that made her just so massive. Like, she became Ripley over two films, really, not over one. But this is the proving ground for this heroine that she became. And I just think that the way that the whole slow burn of the alien was matched with the slow burn of the protagonist. And I think that's such a unique thing to sort of go through, because it could break the film, because you could get an audience go, oh God, why have you killed the one that I thought, it's not Game of Thrones where you can do a happy episode the next week. It's just, you've got one shot at this. And if you mislead the audience in the wrong way, then they're going to walk out, or they're going to turn it off, or turn over, or just give it a bad review. And I think that it was so intricately written that worked. That it was, you were uncertain about so much, but so were the people in the film, and you just had to go with it. And I love that. I love that.
Well, Ellen Ripley, yeah, I've got a note here. Ellen Ripley as the surprise protagonist. She absolutely is the person that you don't expect. If I'm not mistaken, Ellen Ripley was written as a genderless character initially. When all the characters, they were written as just names. They didn't have genders in the script. And that was decided by Ridley Scott, I think, and producers and so on as the film was being made. If I may be wrong on that, but was my understanding of how that was written. And what a I think a wonderful contribution then to just cinematic storytelling in general that they brought Ellen Ripley. Or that they made the Ripley character female, because it ties so brilliantly into the genre then of final girl theory, and that idea of, it could easily just have been lazy storytelling on the part of Ridley Scott. There's people being chased by a monster. Let's make it a woman being chased by a monster, because that somehow carries more drama than for the audience. I don't know. But, there is a long tradition in cinema of the killer chasing women. And not just women, but it's typically the woman is the final survivor in these situations where the killer is picking off everybody, and we're seeing it from the perspective of the villain initially, because we don't have anybody to align ourselves with as an audience. We know that every one of these is potentially doomed, and therefore it's hard for audiences to align themselves with any particular character. And so we align ourselves with the villain early on, with the killer early on. And it's interesting that you talked about Ash, Ian Holm's character, being somebody that we're looking through their eyes initially. And I don't think that's coincidence. I think that's because he is going to emerge as a villainous character. And again, he's one of those people that you can initially lock onto, because he is all-knowing, all-powerful, almost in that world. as the serial killers tend to be in these stories. And then later on, as people start to disappear, people start to get picked off, the audience has to start aligning themselves with somebody in this story. There has to be some sort of perspective and shoes that we can step into, because we can't just be the killer the whole time. And that's when Ellen Ripley really starts to emerge as a character. And I think the one moment, and there's a lot you can learn about screenwriting from this moment, it's the moment where she and Ash are debating whether or not to let them back on the ship. So John Hurt's been infected with he's been taken over by the face hugger. They want to come back on the ship, and Ripley says, no, we can't. There's protocol that we have to follow. And Ian Holm is the one who overrides it. And what a brilliant way of making Ripley somebody who is burning bridges among her team because they don't like her after that. And yet she's making the decisions that we want, that we know we make. You can't let him back on, because we know where this is going to go. And so as an audience, you're like, well, who's the smartest one in this group? It's Ripley. Let's side with her. I think it's so brilliantly done, the way they set up Ripley as she's just one of the gang. She doesn't distinguish herself really early on. She stayed on the ship. It was a coin toss, really. She could have gone down just like anybody else.
Yeah.
But when the chips are down, when she has to make a tough decision, she's able to make that tough decision for the good of everyone. So who's the one that you're going to put your money on to survive? And I think that's just brilliant audience identification. That's brilliant characterization. It's that one defining action. And then later on, she saves the cat, which makes, they even named the book after her, after that. So there's a lot there that I think you can unpack with regards to Ellen Ripley as a character, the way she's been written, and that trend of the final girl surviving at the end and being witness to everything that's taken place.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting stuff in the final girl sort of category, because she is the final girl, but it's quite separate to the trope. There are a few things that separate it from the trope. She's the hero final girl. Final girl is sometimes lucky to get out, but she uses her brain and her determination to do it, and it's not necessarily what happens in a lot of the horrors with the final girl, which is a lot of them. She could have easily fallen into the Jamie Lee Curtis category, which she didn't. They didn't over-sexualize her, although they did a lot of that in this film. There's some very graphic references to sexual abuse in this film, whether it's from the alien or her getting choked by an android, a plastic man with a porn magazine. There's just so much that happens that is very suggestive of sexual abuse. But they don't over-sexualize her, and she is very early on. They make her a little bit cold. She's not an agreeable, happy, bouncy, like, I'm the girl next door kind of thing. She doesn't let them in. She's the one that's like questioning the orders from Mother, which again is another Freudian thing to discuss. But and also the thing that's chasing her, yes, it's a beast, which is generally seen as a male thing, but not this. This is the alien in this is genderless. Like, especially if you watched Aliens first, because the Queen is just a bigger version of the same thing. The alien is genderless. Yes, it might be a male one or it might be a female one. We don't know. Or they may be completely asexual. We don't know this about them because they don't reproduce in the same way. But, there are all these... I guess when they're all together, it's not too subtle, but a lot of them are subtle decisions that make her a unique heroine. And I almost don't want to say the final girl because she's the final girl, it doesn't make her a final girl. And it's very unique in the way they dealt with that. And, she went on to do a lot of roles where she wasn't sexualized, and she was a strong, strong character in many, many films. So, arguably she would have done that anyway because that's Sigourney Weaver, but this did help her. It gave her a platform for that kind of character and that kind of, it's almost like legendary now when that kind of character pops up. She's almost become a trope in her own right. There's a number of films where she's the voice of the computer. Like she's taken over the mother voice in, I think there was one in a Pixar film, and there's been a few where she's the voice of, and it's like, okay, now it's transcended far beyond what it was meant to be. But yeah, there are the characterization of Ripley is very unique. I think it's one of the best.
Yeah.
Things.
I think one of the tropes of Final Girl is that it's that transition from girlhood into womanhood as well. It's that it's almost like it's a lazy rite of passage, I guess, in many ways, where it's you have to overcome this victimization or this aggression normally from a male character, and it's gender violence, plays a big part in these types of conventions. There is very much that idea of sexual violence, in this story. It does play a big part in this, in the subtle in its moments, but collectively very, very obvious, I think. Or maybe it's just, all the analysis that's been done over the years has just made it more obvious, maybe. But I definitely think you're right that she does transcend that a little bit, and that it's not the same as the girl next door who's now found herself in this situation or anything like these. These are characters she's making very calculated decisions throughout. But I have to say, I don't like the underwear moment at the end. I don't think there's a need for that. I understand that you might have to get undressed in order to get into that spacesuit, but I also don't think you needed to be showing what you show in that moment. And it was if there's any moment in that film that felt like a studio note, that was the moment. It felt like
we need some butt cheeks in this film. Like, right, stat, get them in there. Yeah. I think there's a chance that could have been a studio note, but again, like it wasn't. It was definitely a sexual decision to put her in her underwear running around, but she didn't play it in that way. Yeah. She's stumbling around, and it's not necessarily the most flattering scene that you could have imagined for a leading or future leading lady. I don't know if you class her as the leading lady in this. She was the victor. Do you know what I mean? Like, she didn't come into the protagonist till halfway through, but it wasn't as flattering as you would have expected if it was going to be the sexy bit of the 1970s sexy horror film kind of thing. And even that was an interesting choice. So yeah, it could have been a studio note, and they could have said, right, we'll give you some pants, but it's not going to be how you like it, and then just done it, and it worked.
I don't know. To me, it felt like, when I see that moment, I just think it's Princess Leia in Return of the Jedi, and I just think it's just, it's there because it's what the studios called for, or it's what they thought audiences wanted, or I don't know. It just feels like you wouldn't get away with that now. I think you would be, because actually in Star Trek Into Darkness, there's a character who has to kind of quickly strip down and get into overalls or some, work equipment.
Yes.
And Kirk is kind of just a little surprised to see her stripping down to her underwear, and he kind of just doesn't know where to look or whatever, and she just kind of stands there. What are you looking at, or something like that? And I mean, I think Damon Lindelof, I think was the screenwriter, and J.J. Abrams. I mean, they got nailed to the wall for that moment, and it does feel like maybe a little Alien inspired or Sigourney Weaver inspired. I don't know. A
little bit. I mean, at least there was context to that scene though, because the character that she was playing in the original timeline became his wife.
Oh, okay,
so there's a whole thing that it's like, oh, he's going to be attracted to her now because he's seen her in her underwear. It's like, well, is that why you married her? I don't know if that works that way, but there was context to it that he was potentially going to fall in love with her. But maybe that'll happen in the next film.
So you talked about Ash. I love that Ian Holmes' character turns out he's an android, perfect organism, all that kind of great dialogue that he has. I love that that they were smart enough to know you can't just get by with the one villain. You're going to have somebody else. And that's one of the things that I think Alien does really well, is there's always that other villain. It's not just, it's the corporate weasel in Aliens, along for the ride. It's the in Alien Resurrection, it's the scientist. Although they kind of foreshadow that a bit too heavily at the beginning. It's the evil scientists experimenting on the on the creatures and so on. And then it's David in the prequels, which I think is a great character. But I love,
he's great.
Yeah, I can't wait to get stuck into Prometheus and Alien Covenant at some point, because there's a lot that I love about those films. There's issues with them, but there's a lot I love there. But yeah, I really love that it's, if the alien is the dog that's run loose, Ash is the one that's holding the leash. The chain that's supposed to have a dog attached to it, or an animal attached to it, or a creature attached to it. And I just love that he let it go. He let it off the hook. And it's yeah, I don't know. What do you
Yeah, I mean,
Ash?
I love Ash. The whole scene was like, don't touch it, and you're like, if they'd have just smashed it with like one of those steel dinner trays, it'd be okay. Everyone would just go home, get their extra bonus with their alien corpse. It would have been fine. But I think he's great. It's, again, the fact that you don't know, they don't know, nobody knows what he is, and that he's not the immediate villain, but he is a villain. And that's all sewn into this. There's a constant conflict between the crew over what they're getting paid and what time they're going there, and who should let who in the dock without being in quarantine, and all this. There's a constant fight, and it always seems like Dallas and Ripley are pretty much trying to do the right thing, whether they're breaking rules or not. Ash is sort of straight down the middle, and then weirdly at the start, the Harry Dean Stanton and the Yaphet Kotto characters, like they're almost on the wrong side of it. I mean, they're very neutral for a while because they just want their extra share because they're paid less than everyone else, and they're out, they're trying to make their own lives better, kind of thing. And they seem to be on the wrong side of it. But then very quickly you get an alien running amok and Ash, and all of a sudden everyone's piled to the other end. It's like, oh my god, we need to work together to survive. And just how they have to brutalize. I mean, the android is killing Ripley, but they smash him to bits to stop him. And he grabs. I've forgotten his name. The Yaphet Kotto guy. Is it Taylor?
I've got the IMDb up here. Parker.
So he grabs Parker, and it looks like he's going to rip a limb off or something. Like it's like and they have to like wail on him, and then they plug his head back in to get some information, and then burn it. It's like, wow! Like they dealt with that guy. Like it was just, it was the white blood and his voice, and the like weird spaghetti tubes coming out of him. That was new. We'd seen the inside of an android a million times, but not like that. Like this living,
the milk and
it was a biological slash, biological slash robotic thing. It was gross. It was like cutting a person open. Stuff that you saw come out of it was amazing.
And the influence of that design is everywhere now. If you look at Westworld, it's, I mean, they essentially are born out of milk. It's they come out of these white baths and stuff like that, and it's and they do have all that same kind of. You can tell they were just like, give us the stuff that Ash was made of. I love. I like the. I think I love Ash more than I love the alien in this film. Not because, I mean, the alien's amazing, obviously, but I think Ash represents. It's one thing to be in a haunted house, being chased by a ghost. It's another thing to not be able to trust those around you to lead you to safety. It's another, or to not be able to get out of the house because somebody locked the door and threw away the key, or whatever. That's what Ash represents in this movie. It's they know this ship backwards and forwards. They know every, Parker and Harry Dean Stanton, they know every nut and bolt on this ship. And they deserve to be getting that extra money that they want. So the idea that this alien who just came on this ship has the upper hand, no, I don't buy that at all, right? But I buy it when I know that one of the team has been working against you the whole time, and that you can't even trust Mother anymore, because now it's what Ash represents. It's not just a guy who went rogue. It's the corporation will do whatever it takes. If everybody's dead on this ship except for the xenomorph when it arrives back at Earth, corporation will be totally happy with that, And I just think it's brilliant screenwriting. And it doesn't get talked about enough, I think. We talk about making Ripley a really identifiable character for audiences. We've talked about the kind of the tropes and conventions, that have inspired other films. And we've talked about all the aesthetics and the production design, which is where people go to when they talk about why Alien works so well. I think Ash is the real unsung hero of this movie. And I think he's the thing that allows the atmosphere of this movie to really just rain down on you. And rain down terror on you.
Yeah, I think he's one of the brilliant sort of obstacles put in the way of survival. The fact that he's been secretly getting messages from the corporation who just want the thing, and he admits it just as they burn him, and he seems quite happy about it. Weirdly, he seems a little bit like, ha, 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 I got you. But another one's the fact they can't. The only way they can kill it is to get it out the airlock. They know if they do anything else, they're all dead, because it'll take it out. And that's reflected in Aliens as well, when they're under the reactor and they can't use projectile weapons. They have to use flame units only. And it's like, oh, this is familiar. I see what they've done there. And they're trying to copy the same trope, not the same trope, the same mechanic, because it worked so well. It just works great. And yes, it would be unbelievable if they were on the ship and these guys who know every nut and bolt, it doesn't make sense. But when you find out that it's the fact it grows so quickly, and the fact that it's smart, it's not just a beast, like a mindless beast running around the ship, and that they're on their back foot because there's someone trying to save it within their ranks, and they can't kill it. And it's just brilliant. I mean, even the way, I think it's only in the director's cut, there's a bit where Harry Dean Stanton's, the water's dripping on his head and he sort of wipes it, and you get this shot. It's the first time you see it, and it's hanging upside down, just swinging with the cables, and it doesn't immediately do anything, and there's no music like hits, there's no like there's none of that, which we used to, like Monster from the Blue Lagoon and all that kind of stuff. It's just there, and it's just swinging, and then we move on, and it's like, oh, what the hell was that? And then you obviously now you can scroll back and have a look, and it's like, it's just there hanging. And for me, that was more terrifying than like jumping out, and just the way that they've got that it's creeping around. It's going to get them. It wants to get them, and it's going to kill them. I mean, the theatrical release was, it just wanted to kill them. It didn't want to, it didn't want to keep them to breed more aliens. But obviously the deleted scenes with Tom Skerritt and Harry Dean Stanton in the cocoon, that was the first bit we would have seen of the alien life cycle. But obviously they saved that until Aliens, until we got the director's cut. But just all of the ways they've done it.
Even if that doesn't make its way into the final film, that it's still worth commending, because that was the plan initially, and that it wasn't just something they shoehorned in. It was there in their thought process, in the design process. And even just the idea of the face hugger coming out of the egg and then going into you, and then from you then coming the alien itself. There is a life cycle there. There has been real serious thought about this parasite and how it grows and how it evolves and how it can change depending on who the host is. We see in Alien 3 that we get a quadruped because it comes out of a dog or a cow or something, and it's just incredible, like design, incredible thought going into it. But you mentioned the kind of mythology around that creature, how smart it is, and how it behaves, and and Ash talks about how it's a perfect organism. Ash is like the greatest professional wrestler manager that ever, great pro wrestling managers stand there and do all the talking for the big Andre the Giant characters who aren't very good at talking on camera, and they will make you believe this is the ultimate threat to the champion. And we see it in Jaws, where when can't remember his name, the fisherman, the guy who owns the
Quint.
Everybody. Quint, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, one of my favorite films. Quint is... IMDb has made me so bad for names.
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it?
I can just Google the name. Quint is there delivering his speech about the Indianapolis. And what's he doing? He's selling you on how dangerous these sharks are. You knew the sharks were dangerous. You knew they were dangerous from, picking off people. You knew they were dangerous anyway, whether you saw a movie or not. But he describes them as creatures that think. He describes them as creatures that they gather. They feed, and then they'll go away again, and then they'll come back, and it's that. And he's selling you on this fear, and it's the same thing with Ash in this film, where when he describes it as a perfect organism, you're just, holy crap. How are they going to be? He's the sales.
He's basically like Wayland Yutani's pallbearer. They've manufactured their own pallbearer to talk for the alien.
Yeah, and it is so effective. I think if you removed Ash from this film, this would be the most. I think this would be a very unremarkable film. I think, and it's not because the rest of the film it doesn't work, but I think Ash is such an integral cog in the machine of this film that, and I think he's, and I always try and just think from a screenwriting point of view, what can we learn from this film? And Ash is everything in this film. Ash and Ripley, you can learn, you can write a masterful thriller just by understanding what makes those two characters work so well, I think.
Yeah, and I as you say, the Ash / android, that version of the android has gone on to influence so many things, and it's not. And Scott's used it a number of times even outside of the Alien franchise. Obviously, he went back to it for Prometheus and Alien Covenant, but I don't know if you've seen Raised by Wolves.
Yes, I love Raised by Wolves.
Those synthetics have got milky blood. They're strong. They're smart, and it's like there is something interesting that goes on when it even the originator of it uses it again in something else. It's like, oh, this is a big deal. Okay, it's had such an effect on pop culture. It's going to remain for some time.
We need to talk about Raised by Wolves at some point, because I love that show. Oh my God.
I haven't seen the latest one's just come out, right? I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, it just finished. Season 2 just finished. I haven't seen it, but I can't wait to watch it.
Is it 2? Yeah. I thought it was 3. I thought it was season 2. I can't remember.
Season 2 just finished, I think, recently.
It's been like a year since I've watched one, so it must be season 2 that I've missed.
I love season 1. Wow.
It's really good.
Okay, I want to talk about FX's Alien series, but before that, was there any kind of other things you wanted to cover on this?
I don't think so. It's. I could probably talk about this for days. Like, there's so much in it that has influenced many, many things, and the things that influence the writing of it. Even, I said that O'Bannon met Geiger on Dune, but he also met Möbius. And that goes into all the ship design and everything. And like, these are like legendary artists now. And it has a really important place in, I guess, film history, but maybe even beyond that. I mean, I think it sort of spans beyond that. Like, the visuals and the story and the characters have kind of broken out of that mold. And it's been a big part of many, many people's lives. Everyone knows to quote these films and what they were and what they are now. It's huge.
And I was reading as well about the person who played the alien, Bolahi Badeo, I believe I may be pronouncing his name wrong, but a Nigerian artist who had been in London, and I think Scott's casting team selected him because of his height and how perfect he would have been for
I think it was his
the
long legs. They said was his his
yeah,
winning.
his stature, I think, was perfect for the suit. But I love how he was an artist himself. Sadly, died at the age of 39, I think. But a great artist in his own right, and I love that idea that everything that came together to make this film work, the common kind of piece for all of it is great artists, great storytellers, great artists, great visionaries, and great visual thinkers, and people who, put in, who aren't just, oh, you're tall, you're in. It's no, you're actually a very creative person in your own right as well. And no doubt that fed into, some of the little minute details then of what we take away from it. So I don't know. I just think there's a wonderful creative community involved in making that film, and that has just moved on. I also think, just one final point before we talk about the series. I always find it funny that, I never associate this as Ridley Scott's series until Prometheus and Alien Covenant. And now I'm thinking, well, everyone else is just renting space. James Cameron, David Fincher. I mean, some of the greatest, most iconic filmmakers of American cinema have contributed to the Alien universe. And no one had more ownership than the other until Ridley Scott revisited it. And it has become his franchise very much. And it could have become James Cameron's franchise. It could have become David Fincher's franchise. He could have said, you know what, I want to go back and do it properly, because I know he wasn't happy with Alien 3. Anyone could have gone in and made more of them. Denis Villeneuve could have gone and done a series of Alien films instead of Blade Runner. And he could have made it his franchise. But it is Ridley Scott's franchise. He made the first one, and he will no doubt make... I'm sure he will make more. The one thing we know we're getting is FX's Alien series. So I'm going to read you the article of this, because I have no idea where they're going to go with this. This just seems like I'm a bit concerned about. I don't know. I'll read this. Okay, so this is from February 2019, Hollywood Reporter. FX chief John Landgraf told reporters that Noah Hawley would shoot a new season of Fargo, which was just renewed for season 5, and then would go on to shoot Alien. Okay, as for the Alien storyline, he expressed a mix of previously revealed and new thoughts about the project, and confirmed the story will not feature any characters from the franchise's movie, including Ellen Ripley. Alien takes place before Ripley. It is the first story in the Alien franchise that takes place on Earth. It takes place on our planet near the end of this century we're currently in, 70 odd years from now. All I can tell you is Ripley won't be a part of it, and neither will any other characters other than the alien itself. Noah has an incredible ability to both find a way of being faithful and showing fidelity to an original creation, like to the Coen brothers or to Ridley Scott's movie and James Cameron's follow-up Aliens, but also to bring something new that represents both an extension and reinvention of a franchise at the same time. He's done a masterful job with Alien, as he did with Fargo. I hope they will feel like it's faithful to the franchise they love, but also a brave and original reinvention of that franchise. Setting on Earth is really interesting. We have to think forward about the future of the planet in terms of the environment, governance, technology, and create and design a version of the planet in the future. Noah wants to do that in a distinctive and original way. Okay. They're not saying this is the first entry into the Alien canon. They're saying it's the first entry set on Earth. 70 years from now feels like it's gonna...
That does make it the first one in the canon, though, doesn't it?
If it's set 70 years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does feel like this is incredibly early on.
Oh, hang on, no,
Um,
no, no. Alien versus Predator.
I don't know if they count that as canon though, would they?
I don't. I'm not
Because
sure.
because I mean we have to go into I guess, spoilers on Alien, or sorry, Prometheus and Alien Covenant, but without going too much into those movies, the alien is the xenomorph as we know it is created in those movies, right?
I don't know because a xenomorph is created, but I'd be surprised if that was the first one that was created because of the black sludge. They've this isn't the first time they've got it out. Surely, I mean, it's not the test run for it, is it? I'm sure that's happened on countless planets before. For me, it felt like that was their biological weapon. They chucked it out there, and the planet ate itself, basically. But it's
Yeah, because my
yeah,
understanding with those films, and we can save this for another day, but my understanding with those films is the black sludge in those films is that it reacts differently to different things. It's like it can be a destructive device. It can be if it comes into contact with you, it could turn into something different. If it came into contact with a species on another planet, it could turn into something else, and that's why you get different creatures in those different films.
yeah.
Um,
It's basically
I
peanut.
don't think the engineers created the xenomorph. I
I don't
think
know. I don't know. I reckon there was a. I don't know. I was going to say it's basically like peanut butter, right? If peanut butter comes into contact with jam, it's a sweet thing. But if you put Marmite on it, it's suddenly savoury. So it's basically like a biological weapon based on the concept of peanut butter. But
not the analogy I was expecting, Brad, but
but
whatever.
it's I don't know. I think it was. I don't think they will not know that it does that if they've made it. You know, these guys are the progenitors of life on many planets, possibly.
Okay,
And it's
okay.
just, you know, I'd be surprised if they didn't know if that got into a thing and then something burst out of it and then it impregnated another thing. I think they probably know that might happen.
Are you okay with the idea that the alien? I mean, okay, it must exist on another planet because the space jockey in Alien is not the same planet as Prometheus, although that is just a weirdly unnecessary complication. They could have just been the same planet, but whatever. The you've there obviously is the alien does exist, but my reading of it was that the engineers didn't realize what they had fully created. I guess I don't know. Anyway,
I think there were a
um,
few weird decisions made around the lore of it, though. Like the alien at the beginning, the engineer at the beginning who sacrifices himself to seed a planet. Everyone was like, "Oh, it's Earth. I get it. They seeded Earth." And then shortly after, Scott went, "No, no, that's just a random planet." And I was
yeah,
like, "What? No, just make it Earth because it fits
yeah,
so well.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
why would it not be Earth?
yeah. I know, I
It
know.
shouldn't be Earth."
I know there are some strange kind of Ridley Scott's vision for this universe is way bigger, I think, than any of us can follow. But yeah. So, are you okay with the idea that there is going to be clearly an alien on Earth, a xenomorph on Earth, 70 years from now? And I don't know. It feels like it doesn't feel like that's going to go down well with
I
audiences.
don't know. It depends who's writing it, and Hawley's good. Like, I mean, if someone said to me, "There's this guy that you don't really know. He's going to write a whole TV series for Fargo, and it's not going to be directly related, but it will be very related, and it's going to start off with a red ice scraper," I would have gone, "Ooh, really? Like, I don't piss around with that. Like, that's a seriously good film." But it worked. It was brilliant, and he did all the things that you just said the studio said he can do. He did pay tribute to it, and he did move it on. So if it's done well, I think it could be okay.
To me it just feels like you're when it's the xenomorph and it's the origins of the xenomorph, people are very protective of that when those two movies came out, when the recent films came out, Prometheus and Alien Covenant, because they didn't like their understanding of the mythology being tampered with. And to me it feels almost like you're going in, I don't know, you're going into the territory of, oh, Anakin wasn't the first Skywalker in that galaxy that had force powers, you know? Like, actually, it turned out he had his father, who we never met, was actually the very first savior. So I don't know. You know, it kind of feels like we're going into that territory. Oh, it turns out there was another one way before that. I would rather see something else in that universe. I would rather show me, a rival corporation trying to get their hands on the creature, or show me some goons being sent off on what's clearly a suicide mission to capture an egg or something. I don't know. I feel like you can do plenty of material in that universe. I'm desperate for another Alien Isolation game, which I'm never going to get. There's so much room to play with that universe. But they keep seeming to just concentrate on an origin. Everything has to be about an origin story with that egg. And this is a species of creature. And, as Weyland-Yutani and all those kind of elements have proven, there's far more dread in the world than just that creature. I don't know.
I think that one of the main things is how it's going to get there. So you're talking about the egg. What comes first, the xenomorph or the egg? Like, maybe that won't matter. In my head, a bad decision might be, they can get just to the edge of the galaxy and they found it in the Kuiper Belt. Look, this egg thing, and it could be awful. What if it has been on the planet before, and what if the engineers did seed the planet? Because I think that's the story anyway. That there was some sort of seeding that happened. We just didn't get to see it. We saw it seeding another planet. But what if there were remnants of something, DNA or cells or whatever, and they engineer something in a lab from it? That maybe that could be a thing that happens.
Maybe this is the thing that makes Weyland-Yutani get excited about what's out there in space. That actually, wow, there's this creature. There might be more out there. We think we know where to find them. Is there anybody out there that's, Nostromo is on the way? I don't know. You could do that. Look, I was always very hesitant about the Hannibal series because I thought, don't screw with Hannibal Lecter because I love that character, and I just thought Mads Mikkelsen did such an amazing job. I think is it Brian Fuller did an amazing job with that season. I think the end of season 2 is one of the greatest season finales of any TV show I've ever seen. So I think you absolutely can nail this. I think part of my hesitation as well is that FX, I think I would rather like a HBO budget on this. I think I would rather a Raised by Wolves budget. I
don't know. FX can get the budgets if they want them.
Yeah.
It's not. They can raise money. I mean, they're internationally renowned property now. I mean, they're everyone knows who FX is, and it's kind of like that. I reckon if they want to do an enormous, hundreds of thousands and thousands of pounds, they can do that. Like, what would you? I mean, they must have paid a lot of money for the rights to this. I mean, not Lord of the Rings size, but they would have paid a lot of money to get the rights to this TV show. So they're not going to undercut it with a small budget.
I need the marketing on this to blow me away. Like, I need this to feel like this is a serious television event, and this isn't something that we shouldn't be wondering when is it out yet? Is it out yet? Like the way we were Raised by Wolves, this should feel like, because it's Alien. I don't know. Yeah.
I think there's a weird thing going on with marketing at the moment, especially with streamers, that sometimes they don't do anything. They don't do a thing. Like, I watched Snowpiercer, which isn't like the biggest show in the world, but it's a big show. It's an expensive show. And the only sort of like note I saw about this was on the Netflix platform, they were repeating the previous episode, and it said new episode coming soon or on blah 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 blah, and that was it. And if you're not looking at that, there was nothing. And then I literally got a push message on my phone saying the whole the series has started now, you can go and watch. I was like, what? Yes. I was like, yes, the next season's on, but I didn't know it was coming. Like, there was nothing telling me it was coming, and it's because they can just ping you, and they know they've got a direct link to your pocket. Go, it's available, and you might just go, oh, okay, I'm going to watch it tonight. Like I'm getting stuck in, and it's almost like the best. Having their app is almost better than an ad spending all that money on different media space, and yeah.
But you know what? I want to feel like I'm this is a cinematic event. You know, give me the movie trailers, give me the posters, give me the character posters, make this feel like we're going back to the cinema to see the Xenomorph. That's kind of, I don't know, where I stand on it. Are you excited about the show?
Yeah. I mean, I think I said to you earlier, like I forgot it was happening. I was like, I read about it a year and a half ago when the previous season of Fargo came out, and I was like, great. And then I almost think, as we were saying, that there's no marketing yet. I almost think I presumed it wasn't happening. And then you mentioned to me, it's like, oh my god, yeah, the Noah Hawley thing, and then yeah. I am now excited now, but I want to see something about it. I want to hear more about it. I mean, I think it's quite minimal at the moment.
Yeah, if you were to follow the style of, or if you were to go down any particular road with it, would you be looking for it to emulate more Ridley Scott's Alien, Ridley Scott's prequels, James Cameron's Aliens? If you had your wish list, what would this be?
I mean,
an homage to.
I mean, it depends which wish list you want. I'd love to see more Colonial Marines and that kind of stuff, but I don't think that's the right way to go because it's before that, and Prometheus was before Alien, and this is before Prometheus, and you know, there's almost a seriousness that comes into it the further you go back. Do you know what I mean? Like, Prometheus seemed a lot more serious to me than Alien. And then Alien seemed a bit more popcorny than
it's the fact that they mention the environment as well. I'm wondering, is this going to turn into something more like Predator, the TV series? You know, we're out in the rainforest. Maybe the climate is group of climate investigators, let's say, or something, are out there and they're finding something, and you know, they could very easily go down that road where it's actually weirdly an Alien versus Predator kind of thing. I don't know how that would.
I was sad that went the way it did, Alien versus Predator. So spoilers for Alien versus Predator, but the first 45 minutes, maybe hour of that film, I went to the cinema to watch that thing because I played the game a lot, and the first 45 minutes was really good. It felt like, oh my god, they've made a really serious film here. Some of the dialogue was hammy as anything, but I was like, wow, there's this like the pyramid under the ground. Oh my god, we're going to get a alien come out of a predator. This is amazing. Like, they've really thought about it. And then it was like, oh no, don't like buddy up with it. It just, it went bad quick.
And the second one, I couldn't even see it. I mean, I was watching it on a giant TV. In pitch dark, and it was so dark and so poorly lit, I couldn't see anything in that film. It was,
I think there was a lot of weird stuff that went on in all of that. The franchise, even the later Predators, felt heavily influenced by that kind of tone.
Yeah.
And apparently they were going to have Dutch come back at the end of the latest one.
Yeah, that would
have been amazing.
That was
like, come on.
But that film, I think, was a train wreck of a film.
Yeah, totally.
It is a train wreck, and I loved the work of Shane Black in the past. The Nice Guy is one of my favorite movies of recent years. You know, just to watch, and I cannot. I mean, you couldn't pay me enough to go back and revisit that Predator film he made. I mean, when I heard he was making it, I was like, wow, okay, this is going to be a return to form. And it couldn't have been further from... I would rather watch Alien vs. Predator Requiem. I mean, just give me that instead.
I mean, there were a few great set pieces in it, but beyond that, like, it's like fun. Oh, cool! Look at this thing. Look at this massive Predator thing. Look, what's that? Like, with looking unobjectively at it, there were some fun parts, but just how they wrapped, even the language, how they wrapped it up. What was it like? The Predator killer armor or something?
Yeah, it was so
like,
unnecessary.
Don't call it that.
Yeah.
Don't besmirch this this franchise, but they did. But yeah, I guess going back to Alien, that's what we don't want. We don't want
Yeah,
them
exactly.
to go.
I was going to say,
yeah.
it might sound like we're going off topic, but the reality is these are the things we don't want Noah Hawley to actually do with his Alien TV series. And as they say, I mean, he does have a track record for being respectful to this stuff. So yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting ways to go around this. But yeah, I want to, you know what, just make this feel like I'm going to see the Xenomorph on the big screen, and make it feel like an event. You know, this is a TV event, like the way Fargo felt like a TV event when that first came out. You know, yeah. Any final thoughts, Brad?
I'm excited to see the next iteration, which looks like it's going to be the TV show over the Blomkamp film that may or may not happen. And I just hope they stay. You know, they stay true to form as far as Hawley's concerned, and they do a good job of it. But it's nice to imagine that we're going to get 6, maybe 10 hours of an Alien, adventure. Great, I'm excited.
I'm excited to talk about Prometheus and Alien Covenant because I have so many thoughts and things I love about those films, things that I would like. I don't think I hate anything about those films. I know some people hate those films. I don't. I think I'm very positive about those films. But I'm very eager to see what you think about them as well.
I mean, I'm just going to say now we're going to talk about the geologist that gets lost. But we'll save that.
And the fact that no one seems to care that they found life on another planet. Yeah. And it's like, it just wasn't what I thought it would be. And
it's too like, wormy.
Okay. Yeah. Discount Tom Hardy and all that. It is very clear, actually. Alien Covenant has discount Ellen Ripley, and Prometheus has discount Tom Hardy.
Yes.
And, that should kind of tell you everything, but anyway.